Good afternoon, all. I'm thrilled to welcome all of you to Risky Business 2023, Turnkey's own virtual event. I am Pritesh Vartak, Managing Consultant as a part of Turnkey Australia, and your host for this exciting discussion. While we may be physically distant today, we are united by our shared passion for security. This virtual platform allows us to transcend borders and connect with our colleagues, experts, and thought leaders all over the globe. Through this virtual conference, we aim to create a dynamic, interactive environment where ideas can flow freely, knowledge has been exchanged, and collaborations are being forged. Before we dive into this exciting content line for today, I would like to take a moment and express our gratitude to all our sponsors, speakers, and the partners who have made this event possible. Today, we'll be discussing a migration journey from SAP ECC to S4 HANA for one of our long-standing client, Device Technologies, focusing mainly on the security aspect of this journey. We'll delve through different phases, challenges, key results, and takeaway from this journey. I'm sure our audience will take a lot out of this conversation. And discussing this interesting topic, we have with us Michael Yander from Device Technologies, who was a security lead during this entire journey. A very warm welcome, Michael. How are you doing? And can you provide a brief introduction about yourself to our audience?
Thanks very much, Pritesh. Very generous of you to introduce me in that fashion. Michael Jander. I've been with Device for just on 7 years now. Prior to that, I've been in the SAP world since 1995, with my focus on the sales and distribution and logistics modules. And I've broadened out into that for my sins, I guess. In Device, we got involved with, took over the ownership of the onboarding of new users and the security that went with that. And have learned a lot in the process of the conversion that we went through in August from the upgrade from ECC to S4. Where we established our relationship with Turnkey Consulting as our security specialists. So I'm the SD guy that took to security. So that's the disclaimer for anything going forward. But I think, as you'll find in the content, the technical side of things we can all get to grips with. The far harder things are the things which come out of your business, the environment that you're going to be implementing your security in.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that, Michael. A reminder, a virtual conference is only as strong as its participants and audiences. So we encourage our audience to actively participate, ask questions, share their insights through our interactive comments feature. So we'll try to address them post our discussions. So without further ado, we'll get right into the thick of it. In our today's agenda, we will be focusing on the challenges and the solutions which were encountered during the journey. Focus on the implementation approach which was adopted. Go to the key results which were quite key in terms of an output from the overall journey. And then key lessons and takeaway which will serve as a good reminder for anyone undertaking or embarking on this journey. And last but not the least, we'll open the forum for question and answers as well. So, Michael, since you have been a part of this journey from start here, can you elaborate to our audiences the challenges that we faced during this journey and the solutions that we adopted?
Yeah, heaps of challenges, right? Just guess what's all in red. I think the environment that we've established in, first of all, is most important. A company that is very dynamic in the sense of business. We are a distributor, so we are the meat in the sandwich between very powerful customers and powerful suppliers. In that environment, the company is growing in leaps and bounds, and we've just about the last 5 years, we established a beachhead in Southeast Asia in a number of countries there. And so if we look at that first challenge that we had, the business processes have really not bedded down as the company has grown. It's been sort of trying to play catch up, and the primary thing is to keep the customer happy and keep the suppliers happier. So our processes were extremely ill-defined. In the project, that created a huge challenge, and to which we owe a huge debt of gratitude to Turnkey, who came in and did a massive analysis of all of the prior transaction usage over a period of 15 months. So built the mother of all spreadsheets in the process, and then distilled it down to a level where it made sense to look at it from this is what people are actually doing in their jobs, so a description of their job functions in sufficiently loose terms that it could allow a bit of flexibility, but nonetheless at least get some kind of slicing and dicing possible of the mass of data that we got. So transactions, who did what, when, and how often. Very hard work, very time consuming, but the real benefit of it is that you come out of that with something which is concrete. It's science, right? There's no art in it. You've got the numbers, you know when it was done, how often, by whom, whether they should have or shouldn't is not the question, but this is what you actually did. And it gets you out of that old argument that you will come up across in your project is when you make the transition, that I used to have this access, I used to do this every day, and we have to have this transaction because it's essential to our job. And you say, well, you didn't use it in the last 12 months or 15 months, so probably you could live without it. So hard facts versus a lot of emotion that is usually attached to things security. In the second point, when you say identified security stakeholders, it really builds out of that ill-defined processes, little undocumented, very fluid, and so on. So it's who's going to speak on behalf of customer service today, or the warehouse, or finance is usually quite well defined because it's the stable, consistent module. But things in the other functional areas, very fluid, and you've got, even if you keep the same people, their job functions often change as the business changes. So and all that we could do there was really to you have to be quite firm as the security team, and to sort of take charge and start telling people, guess what, you've got the power, you've got the responsibility, but you've also got the authority now to shape this design which we're going to be coming up with, and you are going to have to make some decisions, or if you can't make the decisions, get somebody to help you make the decisions, but you have to find the people. So the stakeholders that you then identify in that process, very tough going, and again, you have to find somebody who can speak strongly from a technical security point of view, but be able to communicate with your business environment. Find the stakeholders and make sure that they can commit to the project. And so you got to get the top down buy-in, but don't let them put people in who are pretending to take a particular role and responsibility. They have to have some skin in the game and be committed to it. In that process, you have to concede that the business has to run regardless, but there has to be some reprioritization and concessions made by the business that we need these people, and they're going to be doing something slightly different for an extended period of time. The fourth challenge there, talking about managing risk. Access risk is obviously defined very firmly within the technicalities of your security solution. Invariably, you have to make certain concessions, and you manage that by pointing out when people bleat about the shackles that you've put on them, to say, well, that was what you had then, this is now. And if they can come up with a strong enough case that you say, well, the system security will prevail, but if you are forced to make, assign people roles which contradict the the security advice that you've been given, the business has to take certain mitigating risks in that situation. The last one is stating the obvious. There's a deadline to everything, but it's particularly a hard deadline when you are your security is part of a larger upgrade project. So S4 was going live, and we had to have S4 security in place when we went live. And so that was the timeline, the deadline that we had to work within.
Very valid points, Michael. And I'm sure that many of our audiences will have faced the same kinds, if not all of them or some of them. So I think they're quite valid. Moving ahead, because you were part of the entire journey, can you shed some light on the implementation approach that was adopted during the entire journey? Because it was not quite a typical one, because we didn't have the business process documentation. So how would you say about the implementation approach?
Right. So I guess the obvious thing, looking at it purely from a business point of view, is that Device is a classical group of companies. So it's a company of companies, and that security, the existing security was to a large extent reflected that, but and that was our leading design principle. So in a group of let's say 30 odd subsidiary companies, some very small where we just upload journals once a month, and others that have got the whole box and dice with stock and their own customers, and we wanted to make sure that the one didn't mess the other one's pool up. So very much the company oriented architecture for security, which gave us the company specialization. But at the same time, we didn't want to be defining individual roles and building things which were unique to each of those individual companies. So the idea was, you would establish a template, which was the smallest possible unit, which we then rolled up those transactions into derived roles, which were packaged in composite roles. And those composite roles, each suite of composite roles was company specific. So we had one, let's say, for example, Device Technologies Australia. There was a set of composite roles, and there's the same set of composite roles, but for New Zealand, for example, or for our Southeast Asian subsidiaries. So we knew, for example, if somebody was working in the warehouse in New Zealand, they had exactly the same set of transactions that the person in Australia had. From an access risk, again, just I've touched on it in the first slide. You invariably come up in a company as messy as ours, that you've got a very purist view coming from your security consultant, and it is right for them to push you very hard when you start talking about any kind of conflicts, segregation of duties, and the like. But the reality is that there are different scales of business, There are different ways of doing business in these different areas. Some, you can get away with very specialized. That's easy, right? Because then you break everything up, and the segregation of these. The difficult one is where you've got the one-man band, and they do everything. And in that case, we never tried to define anything different. It was those risks have to be managed within the business. And so it's one of those things which you have to impress upon the business, and they understand what they've got, and that they know what they have to do, because you're opening up risk in the system, if you like. The user role assignments, very hard and fast rule was nobody gets individual roles, those derived roles, albeit specific to the org elements of the particular company. Those individual roles never get assigned to an individual user. It's always the composite role, which is a collection of those derived roles.
Business roles.
Correct. So the business role / composite role, that's a bit of terminology I had to get used to in the beginning, understand what it meant. But by composite, you're saying this is a collection of derived roles, and they are unique only in the sense of the org elements, the org values that you have in there.
That's correct.
But as I mentioned before, the same role across different companies would have the same transaction contents. So the user role assignment, it actually becomes a lot easier, because if you're giving somebody a role in New Zealand, you understand the access in Australia, you understand the access in Southeast Asia.
That is correct.
It's all consistent. The data cleanup, big job. Get that done up front as far as possible. Get rid of all of your redundant users who left years ago and that haven't been terminated properly. It'll help with your licensing management. There's a bonus. Don't neglect the non-dialogue users.
Absolutely
consider those, and they have to be taken into account. It's also worth considering as well that your users are, we use Solution Manager to distribute users across all of our environment. So think about how you're going to do that kind of a cleanup. It's not just S4, even though the focus was our conversion project. Process optimization, it puts your processes under the spotlight. The security thing really makes you ask some hard questions, and the sooner that you get your processes better defined, well defined, the better you can design your security. It'll be far tidier and easier to manage going forward.
Absolutely.
So the security reflects your process. Don't try and you can't design security if your processes are loose.
It should always come from the other way around. The process dictates the security, not the other way around. But it will help the process.
You don't want the tail wagging the dog.
Very valid points here, and I hope that our audiences would be able to better relate to each of them through their journey as well. So moving ahead, Michael, what would be the key results that you would have taken out from this entire journey? Can we elaborate on that?
You really are aiming to try and get something which has got an architectural feel to it. As uncomfortable as it might be, you really we are I don't think I'd be admitting anything that would get me in trouble here to say that you need to be disciplined, and if you aren't disciplined, start getting people used to being disciplined. So getting structure so that you can have those business roles matching the function of your business and aligning well, but recognizing it needs to be flexible in the sense that if you take things away, but you want it to be efficient in the sense that you take them away in one place from everyone, or you add it in one place and everyone gets it. So you're not trying to sort of do this tiny little jigsaw puzzle kind of thing where you're managing, you're down in the weeds all the time. You need to be looking top down.
That's correct.
In a structured way. From a cost of ownership, I think we're doing security a whole lot better. So the changes that we make are easier to make, quicker. We've also been able to outsource our security function. Finally, the SD guy got rid of security, largely. But you can't hand over your security to a third party if it isn't a well-designed solution that you have in place. If it's badly architected, it's very difficult to even describe what you're giving somebody else to do, and you're giving that somebody else carte blanche, to make changes and introduce risk into your system. If they adhere to the architecture, your risk is far less, and you can get somebody to help you. We all know that the security people don't grow on trees, and the trees that you do find them on are very expensive. So you want to be able to give it to somebody with confidence, and that can be done easily. Our SAP, the security and compliance side of things. The good design will definitely help you be more compliant, and so be less nervous in anticipation of your next audit. It's made us think a lot about what's coming, what's ahead, rather than just firefighting on a day-to-day basis. And that's really the operational maturity that we're trying to wear the big boy pants. It's not easy. You must be prepared for the change that you're going to make. But it really is a worthwhile, a tough exercise to go through. But if you haven't got the resources yourself, and even if you do, I'm not here to punt turnkey, but I can honestly say we ourselves would have done ourselves a disservice tackling this. As I say, the SD guy doing security, it's just a bad idea, because you're more likely to just perpetuate bad practices. The things that you learned are not necessarily the right way, very probably not the best way. So get the proper skills in, do the design together. It's a real arm wrestle between yourself and your consulting partner as well, because they'll be asking for things and you'll be saying, no, we can't do this. And then they'll say, yes, but you have to. And then in some way you find your middle ground.
That's it. One step at a time. That's what Michael, I'll say.
Yes.
But yes. So great insight on the key results. Now, what would you think would be the key takeaways from the entire journey that you had endured while migrating from a security perspective? Let's talk a bit about that.
Yeah, process.
That's correct.
If you've got the time, as I say, we didn't have the luxury, being a fairly chaotic business in the first place, and building sort of upon a very fluid platform and environment. It was difficult, and we had that hard deadline, and we really felt that lack of process. It will make your security implementation infinitely harder. And there are all kinds of things. If you haven't got the time, make the time, get it in. It has to be part of, if you're doing this as part of a conversion like we did, you have to build in fat, leave some time to get that process definition down, documented. And it doesn't have to be to the nth degree. You don't have to write chapter and verse here, but it must be clear, unambiguous,
That's correct.
detailed process that works and that people can describe and that people agree and buy into. It mustn't be BS, but it doesn't have to be, you don't have to write War and Peace. Bullet points that are true and accurate, way more, just as valuable, way more important to get that than
That's
all the
correct.
words, but real business process.
Yeah.
Change management, we all pay lip service to it, and we all pay the pain. It will bite you. You'll get it back in spades in BAU after your implementation if you
That's
don't
correct.
manage, start your change management at the same time as you start your process definition, because things are going to look different to your users. You're going to have possibly a different onboarding process. It'll give you opportunities to automate. That's something, the nirvana that we're aiming for, to get away from
Correct.
all the mistakes that we introduce by manual process. But change management, don't underestimate the value of, and it's the simple things, right? The day that you go live, your users will have a different visual. The GUI will look different to them, because the
That's correct.
transactions won't be packaged in the same way. It will look different, and they're all going to be shocked and horrified if you haven't taken them on board through that change management process.
That's correct.
Big, you don't want that at the time of your go live with all the other chaos that will be going on with the, so plan for it and build in the change management. So the more you sweat in training, the less you bleed in battle. Business workshops, very, very important that you schedule enough time to do these things. Because of, as I say, all that ill-defined business process and the dynamic and ever-changing environment, we had to run many workshops with many people. The better defined your process definition is and the ownership, the smaller your workshops, because you'll have representative business users instead of having to have an auditorium full of people throwing rocks at what you're trying to achieve. The discipline, we need, the system can do so much, and then we have to be cognizant of the chafe points, and where there are chafe points, the concessions that we make in the design, they have to be, those compromises need to be mitigation processes that the business knows about, so transparency, understands what they have to do so that they do it. There's no point in finger pointing afterwards when something slipped through security and the general managers are asking you hard questions. The security is a journey. It's not a destination. You've just arrived, and then it not only changes, that's the obvious thing, but it will put you in a position to do your security better. The ongoing evaluation of what you are doing security-wise, introducing software that can highlight, segregation of duties, sins, and the like, the efficiencies that can be identified in software. We don't have those kind of applications, but as part of the process of seeing what we had to do, you realize that these are things that you can do better. So opportunities to improve.
Absolutely. Completely agree with each and every point, Michael, that was discussed here. So moving on, in the interest of time here, we have opened the forum for questions, if any. I don't think so we have any questions from the audience as of now, but I do have one question from my side, Michael, that since now you have experienced this through thick and thin, from start till the finish, the upgrade activities, the pain, the fruits of labor as well, that has been the end point where it has been successfully delivered. My question to you would be, how confident would you be the next time when you embark on this journey from my upgrade from ECC to S/4HANA with all that you have learned?
Yeah, I'm not scared off easily. So it was a huge learning curve, and I think we've benefited a lot from getting somebody on board that we felt comfortable we could have that transparency. If we were to have to tackle it again, if we made some major acquisition or so, we would apply the lessons learned, and we would definitely be able to do it a lot with a lot less pain. With the emphasis on those points that we've made, the process definition, the change management, but doing it for real, trying to do it up front, ideally not being driven by a larger project's deadlines and urgencies and crises, and to have the right skills. You've got to have that. But we had, we were well supported by Turnkey throughout the process, and I say to our attendees today, choose carefully, choose wisely. You want somebody who's going to be part of your organization, because they're going to be talking to your business. You don't want technicians. You can always get, it's like a developer. We all know good developers, but they can't talk to the business, and it's that communication with the business that you want to be clear and to get the best.
Absolutely. Well said, Michael. And yep, I think so. We can wrap up. So a big thank you to you, Michael, for making time for this discussion, and also to our audience for tuning in and for listening. And if you have any questions, feel free to just reach out and put forth to them through our forum here, and then we'll try to get back to you as soon as possible on that. So, Michael, a really big, heartfelt thank you to you for making time for this session today.
You're most welcome. Good luck to everybody on your journey. It's not for the faint-hearted, but it can also be very rewarding.
Thank you so much, Michael, and hope everyone has a great day ahead. Thank you.